Hi, welcome again to Views from Downstream. I'm Jim Musser with Upstream Ministries. And this week we're talking about changing some of the ways in which the local church approaches its purpose. And we've talked about how it's mainly consumer driven at this point, giving people basically what they desire to have rather than what they need. And I'm a firm believer in what they need is to be discipled. And we're doing very little of that in most local churches. And the reason for this is because if we expect people to fulfill the Great Commission, which is to make disciples of all nations, including this one, then we have to show them how to do that. And most of the time, churches are throwing out that passage in Matthew 28 as if that's going to make a big difference because it's our purpose statement. But if people are not trained to do it, they aren't going to know how. And that is what I saw downstream on the university campus as these 17 and 18-year-old Christian young people came onto campus. They may have been Christians, but they had no idea what it meant to be a disciple of Jesus. Very few, a handful in my 40 years experience, nearly 40 years experience, did I ever see a student be that well prepared. And it's because nobody really knows how to effectively disciple kids. We can't do it through programs. And as I've said on this channel numerous times already, it's the parents' role to do that. And so the church's responsibility is to train up adults as disciples of Christ so that they can in turn disciple their own kids, because that's how people learn. We discipled students in our campus ministry, and thus they could turn around then and disciple other students and then graduate and as adults disciple other adults. That's the beauty of discipleship, is you're training up people in the same process that you want them to use with other people. And we just don't do that in the local church very well at all. And as I've said before, a sermon is not going to do that. A sermon can lay some foundation, but there's got to be training involved. And so that one-on-one, very small group discipleship is crucial. And yet pastors are often so busy doing administrative things, sermon preparation, and so there's very little time that's spent actually one-on-one or one-on-three with men or with women to disciple and show them how to do that, not just sitting for coffee and talking, but also going out and doing. That's what's really needed, the hands-on individual discipleship or group discipleship, small group discipleship. And I think the reluctance of most pastors to do this is because they don't have time, and it's such an individualized thing that they're afraid that other people's needs are going to be left out, not attended to. And so they just try to kind of shotgun blast every Sunday some teaching and hope that that sticks. But that's not the way Jesus did it. And we have to learn to not go along with the culture, but go along with what Jesus did. And that was to be patient and not to be worried about numbers and just focus on the people in front of him and really pour into them. And that multiplication principle that you might be familiar with, where one person disciples two people, and then those two people each disciple two people, and then on and on and on is much more effective in the long run than it is to speak to a mass group of, say, 10,000 people. It's not nearly as effective long term in reaching people. And so that's what we really need to do. But there's a cost to that because, one, I'm not sure a lot of the Christians participating in churches today are really interested in that kind of intense training. And so you're going to lose people. There are going to be people that don't want to do it. And we have to accept that. But I think we still have to say we're going to do it anyway. We have to make a decision as church leaders that we're going to do it because that's what Christ did, not because it's going to affect our bottom lines financially or whether our numbers are going to go down, but what is most important, what is most effective. And we need that to see the church really begin to make a difference in our culture rather than the church submitting to the whims of the culture in order to seemingly survive as a church. It just doesn't work very well. And the evidence of that over and over, in my experience, was those young people coming out of those churches. They just are not walking with God the way they should be after 18 years of growing up in a Christian environment. We're failing them because we're not training them. And so the first step is to train the parents, the adults. And then they can in turn train their kids who grow up trained. And then when they go off on their own, they're trained to disciple other people. And it can be just an amazing thing to watch if we just do that, because the church will just explode in solid disciples if we're willing to take that step. And I challenge church leaders to do just that. Let's be bold. Let's take the step to actually do what Jesus did and train up disciples to train up more disciples. Hope that's food for thought. Look forward to seeing you next week, and we'll start a new theme. And until then, have a great weekend. Bye-bye.